This episode is brought to you by ARX. You want to be a successful strength training studio owner. The problem is you aren't able to deliver the safest, most efficient and effective workouts, making it harder for you to attract and retain clients, which makes you feel frustrated. I understand that it can be difficult to differentiate your business without the right tools. ARX's breakthrough adaptive resistance technology uses patented motorized resistance and computer software to give you and your clients the perfect workout every single time. BioFit founder John Zarbok says that ARX is clearly the superior tool to deliver the exercise stimulus. My clients are seeing insane improvements in weeks, not months. I could not fathom running my business without ARX. So here's how you get started. Number one, go to arxfit.com/HOB to get $500 off your ARX machines. Number two, book a call with the ARX sales team. And number three, learn how ARX can help you grow your strength training business. Go to arxfit.com/HOB so you can stop struggling to attract and retain clients and start to grow your strength training business with confidence. Hey, it's Lawrence here, bringing you another episode on High Intensity Business. Today's podcast is with Quantify Fitness owner Josh Jarrett. Before starting Quantify, Josh had a very strong background in marketing at the Chief Marketing Officer and Senior Vice President level for a big insurance business. So he brings a lot of marketing expertise to our particular niche in strength training, which I think is really exciting. I love to see people with strong business acumen or marketing expertise or something similar come into our space to really provide value and show us how we can be better at these things in something we're also passionate about. The reason I wanted to record this intro is at the start of the podcast, I kind of describe how this podcast is going to be all about how to utilize ARX in your business. Because I wanted to talk about ARX with Josh to understand better how they're utilizing the tool within their business. But we end up talking a lot about marketing instead. So the first 50% of the podcast is focused on mostly utilizing ARX in your strength training business. But the second half is all marketing, and it's just absolute gold. We do take a while to warm up, so I encourage you to be patient and really wait until we get into the second half of the podcast if you are really interested in learning more about how you can improve marketing in your business. And one thing I will say is this does, as I said, become a masterclass in specifically marketing tactics, but not so much marketing fundamentals, although we do touch on fundamentals. But I encourage you, if you want to, or you should definitely develop a better understanding of marketing fundamentals and how to use them in your business, I recommend you go read Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business by Gino Wickman, and go read Story Brand and Marketing Made Simple by Donald Miller. These three books will basically give you everything you need to know in order to be successful at marketing your business. They will help you understand how to identify your target market, your ideal customer, how to differentiate your business, so how to come up with the three uniques, and then how to come up with copy and messaging that's going to resonate with your target market and basically convert more clients. So I recommend you take a look at those resources. But this is also just a fantastic podcast in terms of actually taking those materials and then deploying marketing tactics, whether that's on Facebook ads or email campaigns or content marketing or Spotify or what have you. So after you've listened to the podcast, please head on over to highintensitybusiness.com/tactics to get free resources to help you grow your strength training business. And please subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platforms so that you get updated whenever we publish a new episode every week. And lastly, are you struggling to get more clients for your strength training business? If so, you should really consider joining Hit Business Membership. We provide you with how-to guides from successful strength training studio owners so you can start to grow your business with confidence. If you're interested, please go to highintensitybusiness.com/join where you can sign up. And without any further ado, please enjoy this fantastic podcast with Josh Jarrett. Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to highintensitybusiness.com and the podcast where we discuss high-intensity strength training and provide you with the tools, the tactics and strategies to help you grow your strength training business. This is episode 346. The topic today is how to quantify fitness utilize ARX technology to build a successful smart gym. Today's guest is returning podcast guest Josh Jarrett. Josh even is a senior marketing executive, certified personal trainer, and founder of Quantify Fitness. Josh, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, Lawrence. Great to be back.
Yeah, great to have you. I should say former senior marketing executive, if that's
right.
Don't mind me saying, right?
Tired.
Full focus on Quantify Fitness.
That's right.
So I thought it'd be good to start this. I mean, we're going to be talking obviously about ARX technology in relation to your business, but I'd love also to hear how are things going. Do you want to give us an update? I think it's interesting for listeners to hear obviously what you've been through, right? You had a tornado. Actually, do you want to tell the story exactly what you told me in terms of the article all the way to present day? That would be really cool.
Yeah. I think it was early March 2020. The Wall Street Journal did the piece, had a story about ARX and Quantify, interviewed some of our clients. We got a ton of momentum from that article. And then literally that night, a tornado hit Nashville right by the gym. Fortunately, we didn't have damage to the gym, but it did take the power out. And it's sort of hard to run a smart gym with no power. So we had power off and on for a couple weeks. Finally, the power comes back on, and then the city shuts us down for COVID for about 2 months. So I'd say we lost about 40% of our clients during that 2-month period. And then even after that, just some people worried, whatever. We got maybe 75% of those back. Took till about the end of 2020 to sort of get back to where we were in February. And then the sort of the winter COVID scare happened. It took another 20% hit. And now here we are, end of 2021, and we're probably right where we were in February of 2020. I think not just because of COVID now, but with the whole, the response to COVID with people working from home and remote work, being in Nashville, seeing a lot of people attrit. So we're sort of, that's the challenge these days, is trying to get new clients, because so many clients are moving away because they can work from anywhere or they're getting a new job. So that's sort of where we're at. We're I'd say 120 clients total. 100 of those, I know we're talking about ARX, I'd say 100 of those are doing ARX. Some of those other 20 people are doing just Vasper, Carol, or Sauna, or whatever it is, just based on their personal situation. But our goal has always been to get to that 150 ARX clients.
And that's around 20,000 a month revenue. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right. So 30, we want to be 30, a little north of 30 has been the goal since we pro formed everything out back in 2016.
Yeah. And and as I said to you before, I think it's an amazing achievement that you've been able to ride out all of those challenges and get to where you are now. I hope you've kept stock of that and not just disappointed that you haven't grown further, because I think you've done a great job.
No, absolutely.
So let's talk about ARX. What when you first started Quantify Fitness, what was the reason that you decided to go for ARX?
I mean, if not for ARX, Quantify probably wouldn't even exist. I know it wouldn't. It was at the Bulletproof conference out in Pasadena. I think it was 2015, where I saw the ARX booth and tried it out and tried to figure out how do we get this in Nashville, because I was at the time sort of doing the Body by Science thing just at the local community center. And so that's sort of how the smart gym concept was sort of born, at least how we've designed the smart gym at Quantify Fitness. So when we first opened, ARX was the centerpiece and still is the centerpiece, but at the time it was just ARX and Sauna. We didn't have Vasper, we didn't have Carol, and some of the other things we do.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, when it comes to using the ARX technology in Quantify Fitness, how is it you're using it for best effect? And what I mean by that is, in terms of like training clients, what are the kind of go-to protocols or ways in which you use the technology to really give clients a great experience? Is there anything special or nuanced about how you do that?
I'd say the sort of the minimum effective dose is the big three, is how, like, especially for people that are just sort of getting back into exercise, that's the go-to and the most affordable for most people. So we'll start them out with a big three. And then if they're already in shape or interested in doing a little more, we'll do a big five. And then once we get into that, we don't just necessarily stick with the predetermined big five exercises. If someone wants to do something else, as long as they're doing a leg push pull, we let them do whatever they want on those other two, or we'll try to just have it for novelty and to keep it interesting, switch things up, do the trap bar, deadlift, leg press, belt squat. So instead of just sticking with the same thing every week.
And do you have, how many ARX do you have, and what ARX machines do you have?
We have two, one alpha, one omni.
Okay. So, all right. So that's interesting. So from a programming perspective, how do you do that then? So let's say someone says, okay, I want to do a bit more volume than a big five. Do you create, do you take that responsibility on yourself with your trainers where they'll like create a program with those additional other movements that you mentioned? Is that how it works? Or do you just
That's
let them
right.
go off and
Sort of just have a conversation with the clients. Where one of the trainers is always there with the clients, to sort of guide them. And we've toyed around with the idea of doing some sort of autonomous after hours, but we haven't. I mean, we have a system set up where someone can use their smartphone to get in the facility. It would disarm the alarm, and so we could. I mean, we have some clients that have been with us for 5.5 years that we know really well, and if they want to get in there and do something, we'll let them in. But that's still something that's hanging out there as a potential opportunity, and another way to grow the business is to do something autonomously. But right now, it's all client or trainer.
I had that as a bullet I was going to talk to you about, actually, unsupervised Carol and ARX opportunities. This is something that I've spoke about with Mike on the podcast, and I spoke about it with some of our colleagues. And I should credit Dr. Bryce Lee, saying he actually talked about this long before I'd even talked to Mike about it in terms of the opportunity around that. What's stopping that for you right now? Why? I mean, I know obviously a lot of our colleagues and myself are massively in favor of supervised personal training, right? But I'm just curious, what are the obstacles for you in terms of actually testing that more at a larger scale, or even rolling that as a product, it being unsupervised? Because obviously there's enormous leverage, there's less, labor costs and all the rest of it. So elaborate on that for me a little bit.
Honestly, it's just we have trainers there 7 days a week, and so we don't have the need to do that right now. So it would be more if we lost somebody or we open another facility. I think that would sort of create that more of a need to test something like that, since we're there from early in the morning till in the evening, and Saturdays and Sundays we just don't really, there's not a lot of, we're not going to have people working out at midnight, so there's no real need to do anything like that right now.
Makes sense. And I guess, one of the thoughts that comes to mind for me is I think there could be a problem with the habit and adherence and accountability if it's self-service. Maybe it's a different target market, right? Maybe there's a different type of individual who wants to be personally trained versus someone who just wants to ad hoc use a machine and be unsupervised because they're already, intrinsically motivated to do it without the accountability. Do you think that's a possibility? It could
Yeah,
be a different
absolutely.
type of person. Yeah.
I mean, a big thing of what we do is try to get people on those recurring appointments, because if they're trying to schedule themselves, they just inevitably will start missing workouts, and then we lose touch with them or whatever. So we try to get people in those recurring appointments. So when you're talking about that autonomous model, that may be a little more difficult to figure out how to do that.
That's such a key point you just said there. I'm going to underscore that. That's something that I see across a lot of the successful strength training studios. We see in our own clients in terms of the value of locking in a recurring time every week. Now, obviously, it's our thinking that you should always give clients the flexibility to change that, of course. But in terms of saying, look, we're gonna go with this as a recurring weekly session, it's far more likely they're going to adhere to that on a weekly basis, which we know at least a once a week visit increases retention, right? That's the data that Luke shared with me, or Dr. Paul Bedford shared during a rec presentation. That is really important. As soon as they don't come for like 1 week, the chances of them then leaving or churning as a customer is much, much higher. So I think that's so key, because I just wonder how many of us out there don't push that like recurring time, and obviously, again, I'll highlight, like, or repeat, there's going to be flexibility in there. Clients are busy, they're going to need to change and reschedule, but just having something where every week they aim to come in for this time is valuable.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So you did a really awesome Q&A in the membership a while ago, where you went through loads of details about your business, which we probably won't go through today because it was far more extensive and we were bouncing around all over the place. This is a little bit more focused. But if listeners want to access that, they can go to highintensitybusiness.com/join, and you can learn all about the membership and figure out how to sign up. But that's when basically Josh went through like the marketing tactics, a marketing strategy, retention, all sorts of different things about the business, pricing and packaging. But we will be talking about some of that now. And so one of the things you spoke about during that was frequency. You mentioned that most clients train with ARX once a week. And what I thought was kind of cool is you weren't just talking about how they might need more recovery physiologically, but that actually they found twice a week to be almost mentally, this is not your words, I'm paraphrasing, but like mentally intimidating, right? Like they needed to like mentally prepare themselves to and it made me laugh because I can relate to that just in terms of a standard high intensity training workout with body weight or machines. Sometimes you need to be in the right frame of mind, right? For some people. So with that said, I'm just curious if that's even more so of ARX, because it's probably more intense than most workouts. And can you just describe to me, just so I understand this better, why that is? Because I don't fully understand all of the ins and outs in terms of how the intensity might be so much higher than a gravity-based machine. Is it because the negatives are so much more intense? Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's specifically with those compound movements. Like when someone starts out with the leg press, I mean, they're cached. And so I would say since that I mean, we do have some people now where we've sort of changed things a little bit, where they'll come in twice a week, and sometimes they're splitting up their exercises. So they're not ready yet to do a full big 5. So they'll sort of do a big 3 one day and then come back another day and do 2 more exercises or 3 more exercises. But yeah, from the standpoint of trying to do 2 big 3s a week, I'd say 80% of the clients just wouldn't want to do that. There's a few where we have some hardcore fitness people. I always say half our clients love exercise, but they appreciate the efficiency of what we do, and the other half hate exercise, but they want the benefits. So those are the sort of the 2 core audiences that we go after.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And those people you mentioned who might want to do a bit more, they aren't those CrossFitter types, those people you mentioned you started going after in the beginning, but it just didn't resonate with.
No, yeah, we still don't go after the CrossFitter types. These are more professionals. Being in Nashville, got a lot of people in the music industry, and so, but there's even in that audience, there's some people that are passionate about health and fitness, and they're willing to push themselves a little harder than someone that's more of a novice.
So when you were talking there about way back before you started Quantify, you're working out of a commercial facility occasionally. Is that correct?
Correct.
So when you compare like a gravity-based weight machine, I don't want to necessarily talk about, although we can talk about specific machines, chest press or leg press. When you compare it to the ARX, what's the difference?
Oh man, it's not even. It's such a huge difference, and just, I mean, the feeling you get from doing 8 reps on a ARX versus, I mean, you've just taken the whole part of loading plates and all that stuff out of the question. That I don't know that I've ever had that feeling after the end of one of those workouts that I have after doing an ARX workout. Like, you just, 10 minutes and you're totally swole, you're done, you're cashed. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. And can
Even
you
if
talk
I moved
about, go
away
ahead.
and
Yeah.
didn't quantify, I would be still trying to figure out how do I get access to ARX. It's sort of one of those things that
Yeah.
I need it.
You're a diehard fan.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And why did you choose? I mean, I know you. I'm curious. I know you went to a Bulletproof conference, saw Eric's there. Like that's incredible. But you were already a Body by Science fan. You were already aware of this idea of minimum effective dose. The fact that you could get so much more out of an abbreviated workout with little to no equipment. So why did you choose, when you were looking at Eric's, did you think about buying, just setting up a studio with free weights and body weight stuff and maybe some machines? You didn't even cross your mind? I mean, but you
No.
were working out of a commercial facility, right? So maybe it must have for a moment. Or were you like, it's either ARX or nothing? Was the ARX the
And I
seed for
was
the whole
sort of
thing?
I'm also in the sort of trying to think futuristically and what trying disruptive business models and things like that. So it was more fun to me to try to come up with something unique and different that and see if we could make it work.
And just on that being disruptive, I know that obviously your the name of your business is very much in line with the vision you've got for the business, right? You wanted people to be able to quantify everything. Can you just kind of go into that a little bit more? Because I think your business goes a little bit more beyond just the machines you've got in the studio. It's more about the data. And has that do you want to just talk about the goals around that? And I don't know if that you've kind of parked that because of everything that's happened, and maybe that's something for the future, but can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, no, we don't have everything built yet. I know the AirX guys have an API for the data and um, the other equipment that we use isn't quite there yet. But ideally, we would have an app or a website someone could log into and see all of their data from Quantified Fitness and sort of track that. Maybe it ties in with their Apple Watch or their Oura Ring and Whoop data as well. We do body composition for clients, so just as much as we can to not necessarily inundate them with a bunch of data, but we would take that and try to simplify it and just give them um, as well as we could try to give them things they could do to improve the things they're seeing in the app without paralyzing them and trying to make them try to understand it themselves. So simple tips, motivation, things like that.
Yeah, sounds cool. And yeah, I respect your view around, not providing them with noise, but actually like meaningful metrics that are actually going to help them improve their quality of life, which is tricky because we're becoming, I think, maybe a little bit too obsessed with quantified self, some people, and maybe taking certain data too seriously and where it gets to the point where it's not useful. So I think it's important to strike that balance.
Absolutely. And I know I think there was one I don't know if it was a company or who that launched it, but there was a sort of a cryptocurrency that was built around rewarding people for healthy behaviors. I think it was a flop, but I still think there's something there to do something where there's like a
Oh, I love that
quantified
idea.
and based on not just how strong you are, but just are you going to work out every week and are you doing these things? And I still think there's a play coming from insurance that not necessarily health insurance, but on the life insurance side, that there's a nice integration there. If we had multiple locations, we had all this evidence-based data that we know is going to improve health outcomes. Life insurance companies want people to live longer and pay more premiums. And so it's sort of a win-win-win for the client, the gym, and the life insurance company. So that's still something that we have out there is sort of aspirational.
Okay, very cool. So, because that's part of your background, obviously working in high-level marketing for big insurance companies. So you're thinking about how you can integrate those two worlds, or three worlds, basically,
Right.
in the long term. Yeah, cool. Let's see here. So you talked about protocols, going back to ARX and how you train people on it. You talk about the big three, the big five. Do you play around much with like different tempos, or what kind of protocols are you using? Can you use like isometric, slower negatives, something I'm not saying that I'm not thinking about right now? What sort of protocols are you using with clients aside from
Yeah, we
obviously that?
do pretty much all of that. So the default would be 8 reps, 5 second rest in between reps. Some people will do no rest in between reps. Um, then we'll do what's more of a really super slow. We'll double the travel speed, and so they're doing 4 reps, but it's going twice as slow. And so the nice thing about that is even with the default speed, it's not going super fast, but when it's going twice as slow, you really get to really emphasize those muscles you're using. And I think for some people, just slowing it down like that, they can really start to feel the difference of, oh, now this is what it means to activate my glutes or whatever. They can just really focus on those muscles as they're trying to use. Sometimes someone that's new, they're just pushing as hard as they can and they're using muscles they probably shouldn't be using. And so that's one thing. And then people that have maybe a knee replacement, or primarily with the legs is where we do it most often, are the isometrics. We'll do a couple sets of isometrics and just put it at different points along the range of motion.
Okay, cool. And I'm just curious, I know I keep starting question with, I'm just curious. I should just ask the damn question. You're getting in terms of the feedback you've had from people about ARX. I'd love to hear what clients say, what type of feedback you're getting, how they compare it to other things they've used in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people, based on how we advertise or their friends tell them about it, most people don't believe it or don't quite understand what it's about until they come in and do it. And as soon as they do, we always start people out typically with the leg press. As soon as they do that, it clicks, and it's a very experiential workout. And once they do that, they're sort of sold.
What are the kind of things people say, like after their initial workout? Because I'm sure you get people who do the ARX, you sit them down, have a conversation afterwards, and they're just like, their head spinning. They got all this, they just can't believe what just happened. I know the kind of reaction. So what do they typically say about the machines at that point?
Yeah, I mean, they're usually sold. I can't think of anyone that hasn't been impressed after. I mean, we love skeptics. That's sort of the best, because it changes their world when they're so skeptical and they come in there and the ARX machines just break them. But yeah, I'd say for us, the biggest thing is we get a lot of people that haven't worked out in a long time. So making sure they're aware that they're not going to feel as sore that they may after that. When we first opened, we didn't tell people that. And I think we lost some people just because they're like, I can't feel like this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things we emphasize now is like, you may be pretty sore these first 1 or 2 workouts, but it's not going to be like that forever.
Yeah, that's so important. That is what you said there. I do that too. So at the end of the first workout, I always make a point to explain exactly what you said, like delayed onset muscle soreness. I think it peaks at 48 hours, doesn't it? So I always say, look, it's going to be bad tomorrow, but then, the next day it might be even worse. But rest assured, repetitive bout effect, more exposure to the stimulus will mean that you'll feel probably less sore over time. So, because it's funny, because you get some people who really embrace that soreness and they love it, right? And that actually motivates them. You get other people who that's like, no, I don't want to feel that way. And am I going to feel this way every time I come in for a workout?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's something that maybe some of our colleagues miss and could be potentially losing clients because they're not just clearly explaining this, how that works. Let's talk about marketing, right? So always enjoyed talking about marketing and view. That's a huge part of your expertise. That's much of your background. And I think first podcast we did together, you gave some great marketing tips. And I'm just curious what that looks like now for you, because I know marketing is a changing landscape. There's no one tactic probably that's always going to work. It is my experience and experience of some of our listeners and colleagues. So let's talk about marketing of ARX. What are you guys focused on currently? What's working well?
I mean, the biggest thing we do are Facebook, Instagram ads as far as paid media, and then blog content, email. Those are sort of the more not don't really put those in the paid marketing bucket, but we see the sort of the best performance with the Facebook, Instagram lead form. We still, rather than have someone click over to the website, we get them to fill out their information right there on Facebook or Instagram, and then that'll get them into the sort of the email sequence and show them how to schedule.
That's cool. I like that idea. So reduce friction, have a form actually come up natively inside Instagram or Facebook. Yeah. Is that easy to do? I've never actually done that. Is that just something you can set up when you do the paid marketing?
When you're setting up the ad, pretty straightforward. We're still actually using the same. We've tweaked the copy a little bit, but we've been using the same ad for a long time from the news story, local news story, which seems to resonate more with people. And then just the biggest thing is trying to don't make people think too much with your marketing. And we're testing the new Spotify. They just launched a podcast, small business type deal. So $500 a month we're testing, where we're running ads on podcasts that are on Spotify, and it's just around sort of 30-second ad around, you don't ride a horse to work, so why are you exercising the old fashioned way? And I'm just trying to really get to the key point of what we do.
Is that geographically targeted as well on Spotify?
It is.
Obviously that wouldn't make any sense, but if it wasn't.
Yeah, just in the zip codes around the gym.
That's a cool idea. So
it's actually pretty interesting. They'll record the spot for you. So they have a service where you don't pay anything extra. You work with them on a script and they'll record it, and you can go back and forth with their team over there. And then, I mean, it's not that expensive to test out. And
how long have you been doing that for?
It's only been 2 weeks. Okay. We've seen a little bump. I mean, it's small, so it's hard to tell for sure, but a little bump on web traffic. I can't say that it's turned into new intros or anything. But it's
early days. Early days. How do you attribute that web traffic to that though?
It's difficult too, right? Yeah, there's no science to that. Just looking at the last couple months and seeing a slight bump.
This is the thing, right? It's this is a thing that I think is quite tricky with marketing. It's you've got to, just like any scientific study, you've got to manage your variables. If you're doing too many marketing campaigns at once, and it's not easy for you to attribute that to your analytics, it's hard to know what's causing the elevation in web traffic, for example, right? So would you just do like one thing at a time, unless you could obviously measure it and see the difference between two different things? Let's go. This episode is brought to you by ARX. These are the most intense exercise machines I've ever used. I remember how fast a pull-down exercise took me to muscular failure and beyond. On the final negative or eccentric excursion, my tank was practically empty, but the adaptive resistance enabled me to continue to perform work until the predetermined end of the set. This experience was very profound and made me realize how effective ARX is in helping clients reach a high level of intensity in their workouts and ultimately produce the best results. I also love how ARX measures and tracks range of motion, rep cadence, total output and time, and more with real-time audio and visual feedback. These features are powerful sales and retention tools to help you convert and keep more clients. As a listener of the High Intensity Business podcast, ARX is offering you $500 off your machines. Just go to arxfit.com/HIB to book a call with the ARX sales team to learn how ARX can revolutionize and grow your fitness business. Again, go to arxfit.com/HIB, and now back to the episode.
Yeah, or start with one, add something else.
Yeah.
I'm a fan too of just turning things off for a month and seeing what happens, because that's the best way to see what's working is don't have anything running. So you get a better sense, because that's the interesting thing. The attribution for a small business is pretty much impossible. Like I did this for a large insurance company, and that was hard. But once you get down to maybe 100 clients and you're trying to figure out of the 20 new clients you got that month, how did they hear about you? It's never accurate. They'll tell you they saw, or a friend told them or something. And but then, like for the Facebook ads, we'll turn off Facebook and things go down, even though the attribution wouldn't suggest that would be the case. So it's a lot of it is just intuition. Like there's no exact science for this kind of stuff.
That is fascinating. I love talking about this. So what do we do? What do we do, Josh? Because I think we're told to, you can't manage what you don't measure, right? As Peter Drucker would say. And we're taught to measure our marketing investment, but you're just, you played this game at the highest level. So you understand this better than anyone. So what would be your advice for someone who's, you talked before about, firstly, it's probably important for me to say that you've mentioned before about, just get a basic marketing framework, go and read Marketing Made Simple or Story Brand by Donald Miller, ideally both, and at least understand what you're trying to do with your marketing. And that will give you a really easy framework. And you're a fan of him and you've talked about him in the past. And that's obviously the foundation. Now we're talking more about, I guess, the tactics that you can employ with some of those foundational elements like your one-liner and some of your copy and such. But what would be your tips to people who are like looking to dip a toe in the pool in terms of different marketing tactics they could try, Facebook ads, Instagram? If like you say, you can't, it's hard to really see to attribute the data to any one of these things. To say that they just need intuition, that's difficult, right? Because some people just won't be able to do that. So can you speak more?
Yeah. I would say there's the email and blog content. That's pretty much free. Everybody should be doing that stuff. I think as long as you're targeting, geolocating around your business, Facebook and Instagram is probably the next best thing to try. But again, I think sometimes people too, if the most time should be spent on crafting that message to make sure, for a small business, everything you do should be about getting somebody to get in the funnel and get their information so you can get them in to schedule a workout, instead of trying to build a brand with marketing. Like for a small business, building a brand with marketing is just a waste of money. I think even big brands just burn money trying to build a brand with their advertising.
And what do you mean by building a brand?
Not having a call to action, like just being cute. So that's a common mistake, I think, and even more so for a small business that can't afford to be cute with their marketing. So anything we try to do should have an opportunity. Spotify is unique in that there's no place, if they're using the app, technically they could click on the ad, but typically everything we do has some opportunity for someone to click, give us their information, respond to the ad so that we can get them in the funnel, versus thinking we're going to build brand awareness and next time that person thinks about wanting to work out, they're going to remember Quantify. That's just not the way it works for a small business. So making sure any activities you're doing have an opportunity for someone to provide their information so you can get them in.
Yeah, and I want to get back to attribution in a minute, because I might have contradicted my other point, and I want to dig deeper on that in a second with you. But I love this idea of branding being a bit of a waste of time. Now, can we extend that out to like these, organizations, small businesses who are like trying to build brand on Facebook and Instagram, trying to build lots of followers, spending lots of time and energy doing that? Do you think that's valuable?
If they're doing organic stuff, that's probably not a problem. It's more of when you're spending paid media to get followers. I don't know that followers really correlate with sales. Pretty sure it doesn't, unless you have like millions of followers or something, where, with organic, even with 10,000 followers, the number of people that actually see your stuff is relatively small. I think the platforms sort of make you pay money if you really want the people to see what you're posting.
Exactly. Well, this is my point. It's like even the organic stuff, it takes time, right? Time to put posts. And I'm not saying, I think there might be value, there certainly is value in social media, but I'm just wondering if people are just, like putting up posts, putting a lot of thought into the creative and all their social media platforms just to build up their social media following and their quote unquote personal or business brand. That is probably not the right objective, or maybe not the right activity.
Yeah, and I think it just depends on the individual. Some people are just natural at that kind of stuff. I suck at when it comes to doing organic posts, and I mean, I hate that kind of stuff. That's why I ran marketing and didn't do that kind of stuff. We had people do that for us, but yeah, like the TikTok stuff. I mean, there's people that are just good at that, and if they can create that content without spending days, hours, then more power to them. But yeah, I think it just comes down to how much time you are spending on creating that stuff and what you're getting out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I do know of businesses outside of our space, I'm sure you do too, that get like 80% of their revenue from social media. So it definitely has its place for sure. But to your point, they do want you to pay for greater reach. So you have to factor that in. So if you're doing a lot of work on the organic side, it's sometimes challenging to see an ROI on that if the reach is so low, if you don't go paid at some point, right? Whereas with assets you control, which you mentioned, like building a popular blog, doing more content marketing, and building your email list, that's probably a better place to invest your energy, because you're then going to capture that email, and as you've been saying, get people into an email sequence where you can start to promote the free workout or your primary offer to that person. Now, I guess this is quite interesting where we're going with this, because it's like going back to attribution, right? I mean, forgive me, Josh, if because you are way better at marketing than me, and I'm just trying to understand this better. So you were saying before how for a small business you have to kind of intuit what works, and it's difficult to be data driven, right? But then what I don't quite understand is, well, hang on, if I do something like you were saying there, if you do a Spotify campaign is different, because that maybe is quite challenging, because like you said to me before, the attribution is more directional, right? Oh, I heard you on Spotify, but did you hear me somewhere else first, right? Or whatever it was. But with like a Facebook ad, that's pretty clear, right? If they've come through that form fill, they filled in, they've come through Facebook. So you can measure that. So
Yeah, but there's still people that
what am I
may not
missing?
fill out the form, and they'll call in or they'll stop it.
Okay.
So you get people still, even that don't go through the ideal flow.
Right, got you. So they might start it, stop it, get you some other way, right? And
Right.
do you always ask clients like how they hear about you, or do you just not bother? Okay, you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I think the other thing
and you
too,
take it with a pinch of salt, right?
yeah, with a brick and mortar business too. I mean, when you look at a lot of these other influencers and people doing social media marketing, a lot of times they're just selling something online, which is a lot easier than getting somebody to get in their car and drive over and come to your business, especially if they're 10, 15 miles away. So that's just another reason why more discipline, I think, is necessary when it comes to marketing for something like this, if you don't want to lose money or if you don't want to waste money.
And I know you've talked about this a bit already, but I love the use of the word discipline there. What do you mean by that, though?
The whole not being cute, like really
Got it.
spending time making sure you're not just putting out a picture just because you want to try to do some paid media, like really thinking through, like you said, that story brand framework, and really trying to, I mean, another way of saying it is that people don't buy products or services, they buy better versions of themselves. So really thinking through what you're saying in your messaging that is going to catch people's attention and break through all the clutter that's out there.
Yeah, I love what you said there about how you don't want the prospect to think too much. or have to,
Right.
you don't want to make them think too much. And that makes me think of what Donald Miller says about they're always thinking about surviving or thriving. So if they're consuming something and it's too cognitively challenging to understand, then they're just going to discount it because it's a survival mechanism, right? It's like, no, I don't have time for that. I need to, my resources are finite. I need to allocate them elsewhere. So you've just got to be so clear in your messaging how you can help someone either survive longer, better, or thrive, right? Exactly what you're saying there, better versions of themselves. So I thought that's kind of cool. So I guess this is, again, a little bit counterintuitive. And I know we should always measure what we do as much as we can, but maybe not obsess over it, as maybe the message here partly. But it sounds like you're pretty confident that if every strength training studio, assuming they had obviously a good experience in operations, all the rest of it, because we're just talking about marketing right now, if they had a good lead magnet, good way of capturing emails on the website, they did some kind of content marketing, whether that's a blog post once a week or maybe a video on YouTube once a week or more than that. Well, I'm just thinking of like the MED of marketing here. And then maybe they did, let's say one social media platform, if their target market is, I don't know, over 40 years old, maybe then Facebook is more ideal. And maybe let's say they focus there in terms of producing value on the platform. Like, are those the places you'd have people start in terms of their marketing activities, or are there other things that you think would work? Where I'm going with this, I'm trying not to answer your question. I'll shut up in a second. But what are the kind of like top 5 things that you think are going to work for practically every single strength training studio from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, no, I think those are key. And then maybe some sort of referral program. We don't do one today, but I know a lot of other studios have had success doing something like that. We try to focus more on the customer experience so that people can't wait to tell their friends about it. And then that sort of becomes the brand that drives referrals. And then over time, ideally, we can spend less and less on marketing, because once we get to sort of our goal for the studio, we don't want to keep growing necessarily, and have that impact people's ability to schedule, or we know, sort of have a good sense of what our capacity is. So our goal is to get to where we don't spend anything on marketing, because it's purely word of mouth.
Isn't that incredible to hear? That's so crazy to hear that from someone who has spent millions in marketing, I'm assuming, right, over your career. That you're saying that, and that's the end game. Do you know, I want to read this to you, which I thought is kind of related to what we're saying. I did this content with Luke in the membership. I don't know if you saw it yet. It's called How to Retain Clients for Life, and it's all of Luke's and I should say the Discover Strength team's insights on what leads to really good retention, and it's amazing. And one of the things he said in there, which really blew me away, was if you've been in business long enough, you know there's going to be enough customers over time. You're just losing customers at the backside. And if you retain those customers, you actually don't need to acquire many customers. So I know we're talking about marketing right now. We do always need to be, well, at least until we get to the point you mentioned, looking to acquire new customers. But if we actually focus on the operation, on customer service, on every touch point with a customer, we're going to obviate the need to be so desperate to acquire more, because we're going to just retain everyone much, much longer. And that's ultimately going to produce a more profitable business, right? And I think that gets so overlooked. And I overlook that myself a lot too. So do you agree with that? Or would you challenge that in any way?
No, I agree 100%. I mean, when it comes down to scheduling, we try to make things as frictionless as possible, because that when it gets to like the recurring appointments, or we have a bot that you can schedule with and remind people about their appointments. So we focus a lot on things we can do. Steve Jobs' black sweater. He wore black sweater every day because to remove the decision fatigue. He didn't have to think about what to wear every day. And for us, that comes from the workouts they're doing. They don't have to think about what to do when they come in. We have the ARX and we have the fitness formula, where they're sort of doing everything that we offer in the gym, and we guarantee they're going to get results if they just follow this formula. And then that gets into, and then the scheduling, remove the friction around the scheduling and the reminders and all of that stuff. So people just, they don't have to think about what are they going to do to get healthy and fit. They're just going to follow this process and it's going to work. So I think the more you do that, the less you're going to have to spend on marketing, because you're just going to build a book of business that's going to stick around for a long time. And other than people moving away or whatever it may be, then you get to a point where you don't need marketing anymore.
You heard it here first, guys. The chief marketing officer said you just might not need marketing anymore. I love that. I think it's so liberating, right? Is if and we're not saying you shouldn't focus on some of these other tactics that we talked about, because you probably should in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
But don't take your eye off the ball. Say again.
Yeah, in the beginning, I think it's
Yep.
important. You're going to need that stuff.
Yeah. And so right now, as it stands, is it a bit of Spotify testing, Facebook ads, Instagram? And that's the page. Is that all the page you're doing right now? Is it?
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram. We did do Hulu. I haven't done it in a little while. They have a small business platform.
Okay.
But I'm all about with ABT is what we call it, always be testing. So it's pretty inexpensive to test out some of these new platforms and just get a sense for, is it something you think can move the needle? But just like, it's like trying on a sweater. It's that just because you put on a sweater doesn't mean you got to wear it every day. So being able to see what things are going to work, because there is no silver bullet on this stuff. Everyone's different. They live in different locations. They have different people in those locations that respond to different things. So just because I'm saying this in Nashville, I think everyone's sort of got to figure out what works best for them and wherever they live.
Well, that's a really interesting point. So to make this a little bit more useful then to people in different places where the marketing tactics you're using and the way you're doing them might not apply to them, what are the questions they need to ask to figure out the things they should be doing?
I mean, if you're in a city like Nashville, I would say a lot of what we're talking about is relevant. I think if you're in a smaller town, then it's probably going to be more local marketing, honestly. Some of the stuff you talked about with BNI and getting out there and meeting the people that have similar businesses, physicians, chiropractors, physical therapists, and stuff like that. I mean, we haven't really touched a lot on that, but I think that's a big piece, and even more so when you're in a smaller town where everyone sort of knows everybody. And we try to do that in Nashville, but everything's so spread out that even if we have a relationship with a chiropractor, he may be 20 miles from us, so his clients are also 20 miles from us. So it's just harder to make that work.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like you say, it's like everyone's situation is different, and you've got to adapt. And I know. I think it's MedX Precision Fitness, who are co-founded by Blair Wilson, who's obviously a good friend of mine, but been on the show a bunch. I know that they have quite a few strategic partnerships with physicians and chiropractors, and that works really well for them in terms of driving referrals and new clients into the business. I've got a physio coming into our studio here next week, and I'm really excited for that because he seems like he really knows his stuff. He's British, which is nice. Not that matters. And
sounds smarter than I do.
Yeah, well, that's what they say, don't they? Which is ridiculous, or what you guys sometimes say. But he's he seems like a really good guy, and I was really keen on, like, you have to come and get a workout. Like, you have to experience it, because then you'll feel way more comfortable referring people here. I wouldn't want you to refer people here unless you really felt that we knew what we were doing and that they were going to get a lot of value. So I'm excited for that. And I think that's really important. But I guess where I was kind of going with understanding what people should do, my mind always goes to, okay, who's your target market? Who is the person you're trying to go after? And you and I spoke about this before, and we talked about how one of the things you discovered was that, females over 35 who have a college degree are normally quite a good high-level target market to go after for personal training. So that's one example. But let's say that is who who the listener goes after for their customers, then in my mind, it's like, well, the first thing you ask is, okay, well, in your particular town or place, where does that person spend their time? Where are their attention? So obviously that could be on Facebook, it could be on Instagram. But like you said, it's also okay, well, if they're college educated and maybe they're a busy professional, then maybe a local Rotary networking group or BNI is ideal, or Chamber of Commerce, or one of these types of things. So I feel like you always have to start there in order to understand where to actually do your marketing. So that's a little bit more surgical, and it's actually going to connect with people that are a good fit for what you do. That would be my starting point. But as someone who knows a lot more about this than I do, would you agree with that, or would you challenge that in any way for a new business?
No, I would agree with that. And I think there may be some element of just the founder's personality. Like if your network are CrossFitters or something like that, then maybe you would have more success attracting that audience. But generally, I think what you described makes the most sense.
Yeah, cool. All right. Let's see here. One of the things I had to ask you is something I've been thinking about for a while, which, to be honest, I was kind of waiting for this opportunity. So, well, I'll ask Josh then and see what he says. Is this idea of having a single target market versus having multiple target markets? I have some real cognitive dissonance about this, because I feel like, if you go with the approach that you want to design your business for a particular customer, which one could argue is a great idea, because then that target market is going to really appreciate that, and they're going to be much more easy to retain. They're going to buy everything you sell. They're going to stick with you for a very long time, and they're probably likely to drive referrals into your business as well. But the problem with obviously designing around your target market is well, if you decide to go after multiple target markets, then maybe your business is not built for every one of those. And I've heard on multiple occasions, and you might have done this, I can't remember, our colleagues go after multiple target markets, and it's always not sat well with me, because I'm like, yeah, but why not just go after one, understanding that they're not your total market. Obviously you're going to get customers outside of that, but just target one specific target market. Obviously, unless you don't have success with that, then you change it. But how do you think about that? And are you at Quantify, you're like, right, this is our avatar, this is who we're targeting? Or are you a little bit more broader than that? And then how do you reconcile that with how you design the business, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I would think about it in sort of a couple buckets. Like the local marketing stuff you talked about, I think that is a little more important, because you're dedicating time and effort to go out and do some of those activities. But when it comes to like Facebook or Instagram, the copy is it's not really, I would say, focused on one of those avatars. It's about getting results in little time. And when we do Facebook and Instagram, we're allowing the algorithms to build lookalike models based on our current paying clients. And so that is just constantly, every time we get new clients, it's fed into Facebook. And so they're determining who to target based on the people that are already coming in. So it's hard there's so many multivariate things going on, that just because we say female 35, well, there's a lot of different female 35 people out there based on their interest and whatever else, psychographic type stuff that the algorithm does a better job than we ever could trying to pick interests on Facebook to go after.
Yeah. Okay. Good answer. Interesting. Josh, I've gone through all the things I wanted to go through with you. I'd just love to know, well, have you got any parting thoughts as it relates to those who are thinking about starting an ARX business? Any words of wisdom? Maybe someone's listening is thinking, you know what, I'm really passionate about strength training. I'm thinking about investing in ARX. I want to start a business in ARX, or using that kind of technology. What might be your advice to that listener?
I mean, it's definitely sleepless nights and a lot of hustle. I don't want to make it sound like it's easy. I mean, I'm just thinking back about the conversation. I mean, we're 5.5 years in, and I have trainers there full time. But in the early days, it was just me going in at 6 in the morning, then going to the office, then coming home in the evening and working Saturdays and Sundays, and um, pouring my heart and soul and making sure my wife didn't divorce me in the process. But I think that's, I mean, if you're passionate, you got to be passionate about it. That's the biggest thing, is don't just do it because you think you could make money. I think this business it's going to have a lot more success if it's something you're passionate about, because clients are going to know whether you're full of shit or whether you really believe this and are passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah, good advice. Best place for people to find out more about you and obviously find out about Quantify Fitness.
Quantifyfitness.com.
Easy, one-liner. Yep. Love it. All right, Josh, thanks so much for doing this today. Really good to just catch up with you and learn all about your just your thoughts about all this stuff. And for everyone listening, to find the blog post for this episode, please go to highintensitybusiness.com, search for episode 346. And until next time, thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Lawrence.
This episode is brought to you by ARX. You want to be a successful strength training studio owner. The problem is you aren't able to deliver the safest, most efficient and effective workouts, making it harder for you to attract and retain clients, which makes you feel frustrated. I understand that it can be difficult to differentiate your business without the right tools. ARX's breakthrough adaptive resistance technology uses patented motorized resistance and computer software to give you and your clients the perfect workout every single time. BioFit founder John Zarbok says that ARX is clearly the superior tool to deliver the exercise stimulus. My clients are seeing insane improvements in weeks, not months. I could not fathom running my business without ARX. So here's how you get started. Number 1, go to arxfit.com/HIB to get $500 off your ARX machines. Number 2, book a call with the ARX sales team. And number 3, learn how ARX can help you grow your strength training business. Go to arxfit.com/HIB so you can stop struggling to attract and retain clients and start to grow your strength training business with confidence.